Good morning, church family. Wow, that was enthusiastic. Could I do that one more time? Good morning, church family.
Good morning.
And thank you for claiming me. A friendly welcome to all, no matter who you are or where you are on your life's journey. You are welcome here. Are there any announcements? I practice not missing that for 3 or 4 days because I usually just space right over the announcement thing. So are there any announcements this morning?
Okay, the church received a thank you from Richard's Chapel. It says your thoughtfulness and continued support is greatly appreciated. Your donation helps us fulfill our mission and commitment to the Troy community. That's from Richard's Chapel. And then the Ladies Fellowship or Membership Outreach. It was Ladies Fellowship, wasn't it, Nancy? Yeah. We give to the backpack program at the First United Church of Christ, and they're so appreciative. We got a nice thank you from them.
Amen to that. Mrs. Nevin.
Mrs. Nevin.
This is an announcement of joy. Back in April, our daughter Susan was given the diagnosis of if I could pronounce this, pseudodermatoperitoneal cancer, PMP for short. That was in April. They took him until June 5th to get the teams of doctors they needed to have the surgery. She was in the James Cancer Hospital, 15 hours of surgery, 17 days that she stayed at the hospital. Tomorrow, August 30th, she is going back to the James Hospital in her position as a respiratory therapist. Prayers are answered.
Okay.
I have an announcement. We are having a Gathering Place team meeting on Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock. Any of you are invited who would like to come, but we're also looking for somebody who would like to just spend a little time with some little kids, 8 down to 2 or 3, in the playground with us. So if anybody's interested, just let me know. And the other thing I wanted to announce is that we had a great time yesterday at the Tour de Donut, serving donuts, and those pictures are now on Facebook and on our website. So if you want to see some of the pictures, they're on those 2 social media platforms. So thanks.
That was quite a fellowship we had yesterday. I sat and talked to Joyce Swank like I have never been able to talk to her before. And it was, and that's the thing about going to these kind of events, you get involved in conversation with folks that you see every Sunday, but you never really get a chance to know. So when those opportunities come along, I urge all of you to make time in your busy schedules to come, because it's more than just an event. It is a fellowship for our congregants. So thank you so much.
And while he and Joyce were talking, Nevin and I were working.
So he was doing an article on pickleball, and then he has a bike group over there, and he wanted us to tell him about what the Tour of the Donuts was.
It certainly was a fun event, and this is another one of those tales where the first storyteller doesn't have a chance. Now, if we could quiet ourselves for worship. O Lord, who may abide in your tent, who may dwell on your holy hill, those who walk blamelessly and do what is right. Those of you who are able, would you please stand and join me in the call to worship? Come to listen, for all God seeks to teach us. God has given us birth by the word of truth.
We are drawn to God as to a lover. We leap for joy when we know God's care.
Every perfect gift comes to us from God. God's image is a part of each one of us.
God's grace has been poured into our lives. Wisdom and understanding are offered to us.
Who will dwell on God's holy hill? Those who walk uprightly and speak the truth.
We will honor God by honoring our neighbors. We will act toward them as we wish to be treated.
Creator God, you have loved us passionately into being. We come today seeking your presence and to know we are your beloved. Enter our sanctuary and enter our hearts that we may look into your loving gaze and see ourselves reflected there as you see us. Let us love, for you reflect and mirror your perfect love as we gather as your beloved community. Amen. Today's first hymn is hymn number 174. We will be building, and it's in the red hymnal. Today's scripture reading comes from James 1, verses 19 through 27. You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness. Therefore, rid yourselves of all this sordidness and rank growth of wickedness, and welcome with meekness the implanted word that has the power to save your souls. But be doers of the word and not merely hearers who receive themselves. For if any are hearers of the word and not doers, they are like those who look at themselves in a mirror. For they look at themselves and on going away, immediately forget what they were like. But those who look into the perfect law, the law of liberty, and persevere, being not hearers who forget, but doers who act, they will be blessed in their doing. If any think they are religious and do not bridle their tongue, but deceive their hearts, their religion is worthless. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is their distress, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. Thus ends the reading of today's scripture.
In spite of my foolishness, I just want to say I certainly agree with what Earl said about how times like yesterday when we did the Tour de Donut allow us all to connect in new ways, and it is really rich and good to do that. And I'm grateful for the new connections that we made, and there were 18 of us there yesterday. So it was just a good turnout. 18 of us and 2,000 of them. 2,000 bicyclers yesterday. And half of them were in that little yard at one time, it seemed like. It just was a big event. So glad to hear the good word and thanksgiving for Susan's healing and progress. What a good thing it is for us to get together and to hear the way God has answered prayer for us. I wonder if you have other words of thanksgiving or words of concern that you'd like to share this morning.
I would like to thank you all for the prayers for my sister. She is recovering well. Next week she goes to have the stitches removed from her arm. As I reported, her arm was removed from the just above the top of her elbow. She is 64. It was her dominant hand and arm that was removed. And she is 64, but she is so proud of the way she's progressing with being able to write and color and be her old jovial self as she recovers and learns how to make her remaining arm dominant. Soon, once the stitches are removed, I think I said, she told me yesterday, in a week or so, and she is healed, then she will see a person about, a company about a prosthetic for her right arm. So thank you all so much. I had the privilege, and it was a privilege for me, to have her speak with Don, and boy, was he uplifting to her, and she was certainly happy to hear from a representative of our church. So thank you all, and please keep up your prayers.
And she so appreciated the shawl that Becky presented to her as well. Any other concerns or words this morning?
I wanted to continue to remember the people in Afghanistan and also the families of the service people and the civilians who were killed in Afghanistan. It's a very terrible situation, and I just, my heart just aches for that whole area of the world and what they have to go through. So anyway, I just wanted to continue to remember them in our prayers.
Thank you.
I have a joy. This is personal. But next week, Madeline starts school. Ashley goes back to work full time, and I will have the house, the peace and quiet for an entire school year again. And I'm very happy about this. That's my joy.
Huh. Well, there's all different kinds of joys that happen, don't there?
Can I do one more, Joy?
Of course.
And I apologize because I am so nervous when I speak. I completely spaced through telling you folks that Becky Pierce has done prayer shawls for two of my sisters. And I had the distinct honor to have my sister, my middle sister, who is now going through her problem, to talk to Becky and thank her personally for the prayer shawl. And everybody that came into her room, she had to show that prayer shawl. And thank you so much, Becky. I appreciate it.
Well, all right. This is what I mean by being beloved community. So thanks for all of you. Let's pray together. We're reminded now in this moment, as we have talked about hardships and joys, about loss and about healing, about richness that comes out of difficulties, about family joys, both families of origin and broader families of this community. We thank you for little ones that go to school, and we thank you for adults that get to enjoy silence. We thank you for each and every person in the room. So we're reminded this morning of the words that we say during communion, that it is right to bring God our thanks and praise. It's right because you're the Creator, and without you we have nothing. And so we do thank you. And in the middle of so many people in our world today, in our country, who are hospitalized and struggling to breathe, we would not only lift them to you, but thank you for life and breath. And be present to those who haven't the luxury of either one. And as we've been reminded in the middle of those many who are being forced to leave their homes, their towns, their friends, and their homeland, people in Afghanistan and in those neighboring countries, we would ask for your great compassionate care for all of those losses. And thank you at the same time for this community and for the smiles and the warmth of our friends and our neighbors, for being able to feel safe and comfortable in the middle of so many who are troubled by fear and anger and resentment in our world, for being able to have a measure of peace. We give you thanks. Do remind us when we tend to complain of those who have it so much worse, but are just out of our eyesight, but they're our brothers and sisters. And remind us of your compassion when we're tempted to give in to bitterness. For this place, for this country, for our many blessings, we give you thanks. And we lift to you those who need our prayers and those with whom we rejoice. We lift Dot to you and all of the Reeves family. We lift Susan. We lift all of the people in Afghanistan. We pray for Kate Arnett's father-in-law to be, Ed, for Janet Walpole, Pam, Beulah Bowers, Liz, Barry's, Jean, Luann, Nancy Nadolny, Barb Neer, M. Finney, the Wilson children, and Joyce Heffelfinger, and all of those whose names that we forget and don't know, or who haven't been named out loud. When we remember all of those people who suffer, sometimes we feel worry and sadness, but we're also grateful that we have one to whom we can turn with that worry and that sadness. So we bring them and ourselves to you with trust this morning. Hear the prayers that we speak, both the ones that I speak out loud and the prayers from every heart in the room. And hear us as we all pray together the prayer you taught your disciples to pray so long ago. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Well, it's so good to have Maddie with us this morning, and Jacob isn't here, but it's good to have Maddie, and let's join together and sing our song of welcome and also transition for Maddie, and after that, let's pause for a moment of silence as we prepare ourselves for the sermon this morning. The hymn is on 323 of your black hymnal, if you don't know it. when I came this morning and Earl arrived and came up to the front, and we were chatting about the worship service a little bit. He was talking about the reading of the scripture this morning, and he said, I think this text is all about doing, or something close to that, he said. And if I were going to try to describe for you what the book of James is all about, it would be about doing. And I, many weeks ago now, when I was kind of trying to define what it is that I think the emphasis of the church should be, one of them was the whole business of service. And one of those circles was service, and service is a matter of doing. And as I've studied the New Testament, or the whole Bible in seminary and so on, one of the things that it's been attractive to me and interesting to me is the way all of the various books of the Bible have a personality of their own that reflects the writer. We don't always know who the writers were. Sometimes the books bear the name of a person, like the book of James and the Gospels and other writers, but we're never quite sure if that meant that James actually wrote it or not. Not that they're trying to deceive anybody, but it was the practice back then to not only sign it with your own name, but also it could have been the practice, and was the practice in many cases, to write in the style of and in the kind of with the theology and the mindset of a particular person. And so you would name the book after somebody that was your model. So in any case, just saying that about the book of James. Whoever wrote that book was a very practical church leader. You might not want him for your pastor, but maybe. Depends on what you're like. But he just wanted to go right at it and say, here's how it is, and here's what you ought to be doing. And this is it. Named the things, spelled it right out, and when you came away, you really probably said, well, maybe I got that one right, but my conscience is bothering me about this. You would probably go away from hearing James. 6 times in the first chapter, 6 times, he either uses a word translated should or ought. 6 times in one chapter. You should, you should, you should, you ought. No question about that. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that. But if you like someone who gets straight to the point, you want to read the book of James. And he's very action-oriented as well. He wants you to do. It's exactly like Earl said. He wants you to do. Just do it. Nike probably was one of James's students. Just do it. Is that right? Did I get it right? Nike did that? Okay. I'm such a sports fan. And he doesn't mess around when he goes at this, when he goes to its instructions. I want to just read it again, because I think you read it, you hear it one time when the liturgist reads the scripture, and then sometimes it just kind of, you don't catch it all at the time. Here's what he says. Don't merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. I think that's the only place in the Bible where it's like that. Don't just listen, do something. Get at it, do it. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like a man who goes to and looks at his face in a mirror. And after looking at himself, goes away and immediately forget what he looks like. But the man who looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues to do this, not forgetting what he has heard, but doing it, he will be blessed in what he does. Blessed in what he does. That's very important. That's James's theme. You'll be blessed in what you do. It's a good thing we've got people like James around, I guess. even though they probably irritate us. And it's a good thing we've got people like James in the church. Otherwise, we'd all assume that religion is just about coming to church when we feel like it, listening on Facebook when we don't, and not thinking about it the rest of the week. And we've done our duty. You wouldn't like living under James as a preacher in your place. James reminds us that it's not all about getting your head and your heart right. It's about doing something about it in the real world. It's about getting your hands right and your feet right, the doing part of you, not just your head and your heart. It's about making a difference in the world that we've been given. We've been handed a whole world, and we're to make a difference. Christianity is about a change in your schedule as well as a change in your heart and your head. It's not a religion for couch potatoes. If you are a couch potato, you don't understand Christianity. It's not about people who like to look in the mirror and then apply some good makeup so that they look good. We're not in this to look good. We're in it to do good. And James says it's okay for you to look in the mirror, but you look in the mirror to see who you are and what you're like and what you ought to be, and then you ought to go out and change something and do something different to make a change in yourself or in your world. Do something about it. So, James would say, pull out your phone or your little schedule book. Who was it? Colleen, you use a little paper schedule book. Are you the one that does that? Oh, no? Somebody does. Oh, it doesn't matter. Oh, Glenn uses a little paper schedule book. Anyway, pull it out and take a look at it. If maybe you keep your schedule on your calendar at home, and maybe you keep it on your phone, but take a look at it. And ask yourself, when you look at that schedule, does that look like the schedule of a follower of Jesus? If you were a real follower of Jesus, would your schedule look like that? That's what James is trying to say. This is a matter of what you do. It's not a matter of what you believe entirely. It's a matter of what you do. What you do tells the world everything they need to know about what you believe. You tell the world what you believe by what you do. There are 3 reasons why all sermons should have 3 points. Mine don't, but good sermons should. This one is going to be a good sermon because I have 3 points. 3 good reasons why you have been asked to really do something good in the world because you follow Jesus. I'm going to get to what that first one is. Just give me a minute. God was very clever when God made the world. God designed the world so that God doesn't have to do all the work. That's a good plan. God made the world so that if we want the world perfected, if we want them to make the world be what it could be, if we want to make love rule in the world, all over the world, we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to cooperate with the plan of God to make it happen. It's our job. It's how the world was created. God made the world so that we need one another. And so that we must learn to cooperate with one another and serve one another for the world to thrive. It's part of the design of this world. I believe that at the foundational level, that this world runs on love or it doesn't run at all. And God said, it's your job to do that. It's your job to practice love, to do something loving that makes the world a better place. It's your job. I can't do it all by myself. It wouldn't be any good if I did. I depend on my people that I have created to make that happen. So the first reason why we must continually focus on service as a part of our Christian responsibility is that it's good for God for us to do it. God's purpose is to make something wonderful out of the world that we have inherited. And it's a world that needs our attention. And God needs us to be a part of it. So when we serve others, we serve God. And we become then co-creators with God as God is beginning to work, or continues to work, in our world. Did you notice the first hymn and the words of it? Probably you didn't. If you thought it was a new hymn, it isn't. You've sung it 6 or 7 times before. I saw it in the little book that Jenny keeps over here. But it's all about that business of being a co-creator with God, working together with God in this world to further God's agenda. So we do it for God's sake. The second reason is because, this is going to shock you, serving others benefits them. Benefits God. Secondly, it benefits those people. You know, we have gotten so hung up in our culture, in our time. I think it's all of us. It has sort of infiltrated all of our theologies and our philosophies. So hung up on whether or not somebody deserves to be served and cared for. And when we find out whether they deserve it, then we'll come along and maybe we'll help. But not until we figure out whether they deserve it or not. I think that's funny that we have come to that place, and it's tragic that the church has come there as often as it has, that we want to wait around to figure out whether they deserve it or not. Just suppose now, for a minute, Jesus had that idea. Rewrite the story of the life of Jesus and tell me what Jesus would have been like and what Easter and Good Friday would have been like if Jesus had said, I've got to figure out whether they deserve it first. It used to be. I used to hear this. I really did when I was much younger. That people would say to me in the serving part of our economy and our world, whether they deserve it or not is not my concern. I am just here to be the hands and feet of Jesus and leave the judgment to God. I just serve. I just care. I'll never forget, I've asked you to pray for Jim many times. He's doing some better, but he's still confined to a care facility. Jim just so impresses me. I went for every day, one day a week to Tim Hortons for coffee and something else. I can't remember what. Maybe a donut. Maybe it was chocolate. But I would sit with Jim, and I sure remember really early on, there was sort of an obnoxious, not very clean guy that came into the Tim Hortons when we were sitting there. And I don't remember, he's died since, I don't remember what Jim called out to him, and the guy called out to Jim. And they went together and they just embraced and they had such a good experience together. I said, who in the world was that, Jim? Oh, he's a homeless guy that lives somewhere just outside of town. I said, how do you know him? Oh, I've given him a lot of money. I've given him money. Why? I don't know how many times Jim said to me, he's got a story. Everybody's got a story. And it doesn't matter to me. I just give to him because I feel compelled on the inside to do it. And I just do it for that reason. I have to say, I don't know the answer about where the line should be drawn about our giving to people and they're deserving it or they don't deserve it. I don't know about that. I don't know how much effort that we should put into placing on determining those things and whether they deserve them or not. It's a very complicated thing in the economy of our country. But when I look at Jesus and when I see myself as a follower of Jesus, I see somebody there who served and helped without ever, to my judgment, did he ever get into the business of figuring out whether the help was deserved or not. Never once do I remember that happening. Maybe you can remember a time. One time, Jesus said to a man who was not well, one time, do you want to get better? I love that. He didn't say, can you fill out this form and tell me what you've done? Are you working? Do you have a job? Can you bring me a tax receipt? Do you pay into the city? Never once did he do any of that kind of thing. The only time he ever came close was one time when he said to that guy, do you want to get better? Do you want it? Otherwise, he just did. Why? Because his father told him. An inner compulsion just to do and to give. I do know it's very hard. It's very hard to be in the service ministry. To serve people as part of your life when you're having to figure out if they deserve it or not. That's hard work. And so, I just want to say it's a whole lot easier to just listen to an inner voice and do what you're called to do and just give and leave the results to God. Now you take that for what it's worth. Service benefits them. Third, service benefits me. God, them, and me. Our world is becoming more and more crowded. You know some of the figures, and the needy are becoming more and more numerous. And so it becomes more and more self-destructive to find ourselves on the side of holding tight to what we have. That's not common thought. Mostly what I hear is we're getting more crowded, so we should hold tighter to what we have. I don't think that would be God's philosophy. And I want to also add that there is nothing like the joy and the freedom that comes from being truly generous. Especially the generosity which pushes me to the place where I have to trust God because I've been so generous. This is just all through the Bible. My God shall supply all your needs, Philippians says, according to his riches and glory. Have you ever, by your generosity, gotten to the place where you needed God to supply your needs? That's a hard thing, isn't it, to think about, but something important. And it's such a place of freedom. So at St. John's United Church of Christ, we serve others for God's benefit because it's God's plan. God needs us for their benefit because serving changes lives like nothing else. And for our own benefit, we become generous people. We serve because in serving we become better people. St. John's is a giving and a serving place. I've watched it. I've seen it happen, and it's so fun to watch you do it. So I don't say these things to imply that you aren't doing it. I just say, keep on, hang in there, keep doing it. We need people who are just generous, giving, serving people like never before, and we need a place that is a center of giving, caring, service. And we are that, and we can be more. I just say these things as a reminder, as an encouragement, and as an effort to say to you what Paul said to the Galatians, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up. Amen.
Every generous act of giving with every perfect gift is from above. Thank you for your generosity within us that comes from you. Fill us with the hope of young love. May we give generously to your church. Would you all join me in the dedication prayer? Our hearts overflow with thanksgiving for all the bounty you entrust to our stewardship, O God of light. You have reached into the shadows where we often flee to rescue us and give us your work to do. As you have freed us from the chains of sin, we seek to offer healing to others as we listen and share and do. Bless our offering of self and substance, we pray. Amen. Our last hymn of the morning is hymn number 539 in the black hymnal, Won't You Let Us Be Your Servant?
in peace. Go in peace, knowing that you go to serve and to do and to figure out what God is calling you to do. Amen.